Okay, right, on to my main subject for tonight. I'm worried about you lot. I'm seriously worried about the amount of focus as a community, the amount of focus of our attention that we place on negative issues, on, you know what I mean, how the New World Order is going to fucking make all our food poison and poison the airs and poison the air and stomp all over us with their stormtrooper boots. That is all entirely possible. I don't dispute the fact that it could well be happening. But my real concern is that the greater my grasp of the digital reality model that Tom Campbell's coming up with, and some of the frontier science that I'm researching, is that by the very focus of our attention, we affect the nature of reality. Now, I know that in a lot of the stuff that I do, I use language that I'm comfortable with, and I understand that some people that are listening may not get some of the terminology that I'm using. I, generally speaking, try to illustrate any sort of jargon terms that I may use as clearly as I'm able. But I obviously am going to slip into various terms that I'm comfortable with and not necessarily realise that they're not necessarily things that other people are completely completely comfortable with the usage of. Certainly with understanding the descriptions of reality. First of all, we have to understand the distinction between subjective and objective. Okay? Essentially, anything that you perceive, anything that you feel, taste, touch, or smell is subjective reality. You are the subject of that reality. You have experienced it. Okay? What we describe as objective reality is the external, the agreed reality. So if I see a rock and you see the same rock and we both decide that it's a rock, then our individual subjective realities become an objective reality. That essentially we describe the rock as existing, as no longer being imaginary. If I could see the rock and we were both standing next to each other and you couldn't see the rock, then it's not very bloody objective, is it? That becomes a very subjective rock. It exists as a rock to me, but apparently you can't see it, so not very objective. So there is no object, there's no substance to the subjective. Right. In grasping those terms, we then start to look at what is the nature of subjective reality. And essentially all of subjective reality, everything that we experience, everything that we think, feel, taste, touch or smell, is delivered as a series of nerve impulses from our external senses. And those senses aren't just external, as in we are perceiving the outside world, but they are external to the brain that we perceive them with. So, although we are thinking that we are in a world full of light and sound and sensation, the brain in its brain case is deaf, dumb and mute. It could be anywhere at all, just being fed with the signals of sense, taste, touch and sound. I can't believe... Oh, they are getting it. Sorry, door knocked. Are they getting it? I think they might be getting it. Yeah, if you were to immerse a brain in a tank of amniotic fluid and plug in digital wires, digital signal paths from a huge supercomputer with a virtual reality model on it, and feed that into the human brain, if the model was realistic enough, the brain would have no understanding that it was in a tank at all. Okay, so essentially the skull excludes all light, most sound, some vibration. So the subjective that we perceive is a data stream, and that data stream is transmitted via our nerves, via our synapses, and that these synapses rely on chemical transmitters that interact with the synaptic head, with the receiver part of the nerve, and essentially are transmitted along the nerve as electrical impulses. And that electrical impulse will be a pulse, it will be a single data point, it will be a single data bit, a bit of information. And so what we're talking about here is we're talking about digital. We're talking about the nerves essentially transmitting signals to our brain, to our central nervous system, digitally, in parts, in packets of information, exactly the same way as your home network, the internet, passes packets of data around, little 8-bit packets with an address and a time code stamped on them, sent out over the network. So we exist in this digital data stream in our subjective reality. Now, my subjective reality is that I'm sitting here in front of a microphone talking to a dead cold mic, and somewhere out there in the ether there are other people listening to me. As it happens, I know that particular subjective reality is fairly realistic because I've got my missus upstairs chatting to me on the bloody chat box, and Kazza and a few other people kind of confirming my subjective experience to make it fairly reasonable to assume this is actually objective reality, that I am actually sitting in front of this microphone and you out there are actually listening to the words that I'm saying. So essentially, the reality of this radio show is constructed from my subjective reality of sitting here and talking, and your subjective reality of sitting there and listening to my bollocks. Well, not listening to my bollocks, obviously, that would be ridiculous. You could listen to them, but they don't tend to say very much. So where is reality constructed out of those two subjective experiences? Well, the reality is in fact co-created. Yeah? That the subjective experience, that all of our subjective experiences coalesce to create the objective experience, that which we can compare, that which we can agree on. Okay? So, in order to describe objective reality, we have to essentially, first of all, understand that objective reality is created out of our collective subconscious. Yeah? That we unconsciously create that reality and exist within it. Now, if that is the case, then is it not possible that simply by being aware of the fact that our collective reality, that our collective subjective experience is that which actually moulds the nature of reality that we experience, then what if we become conscious of that creative potential within ourselves? What if we begin to agree on what nature we want reality to take? And surely, is it not a matter that if it's possible to plasticise the nature of the future probability flow down this digital data stream, merely with our intention, with the focus of our intention, with the power of our intellects, and with the actions of our bodies, we reinforce the plasticity, the impact of our desire on the plasticity of reality in such a way that I honestly believe that if, rather than spending our time mulling over what it is that they were spraying us with, if we spent our time agreeing on a course of action, on a desired outcome. I don't want things to be sprayed on my head anymore. I don't know what that stuff up is in the sky. I'm concerned about it. I would rather it wasn't there. Okay, I don't want the stuff up in the sky. I don't want my blue skies to be obscured by white clouds being ejected from the back of airliners. What can I do about that? Okay, my intention is that I want to see blue skies again. Okay, am I prepared to stop going on foreign holidays? Am I prepared to encourage all of my friends to stop going on foreign holidays? Am I going to make an action that actually reinforces that desire? Am I going to push my reality to a greater extent than just sitting in an armchair twiddling my thumbs wishing that it was going to happen? Okay? Now can you see how sitting in an armchair cursing at the bloody clouds in the sky isn't going to make those clouds go away? Those clouds are going to stalwartly remain where they are put, okay? And whatever's putting them there is going to carry on putting them there. Alright? So, first of all, we have to clearly identify the boundaries of our intention. Yeah? Is it that we want to bring down the government because the government are supporting the biochemical industries putting stuff into the tanks of airliners to dump it into the clouds to fall on all of our heads? Yeah? Is that really our intention? Or would our intention actually be just not to have fucking stuff up in the sky in the first place? Okay? Now, if that remains our fixed, firm intention, yeah, and we then focus that intention with our desire for an outcome, and we concentrate, we think about that desired outcome and how it might be achieved, because this is the thing, is that none of this is goddamn magic. Okay, there is no magic. There's no mystery. There's no God. There's no devil. Yeah, this is reality. This isn't fairy stories. All right. So in order to get from A to C, one has to pass through B. So in order to have an achieved outcome, one must first of all understand all of the interim procedures that must take place in order for that outcome to take place. If I want all world wars, if I want all global conflict to end tomorrow, it's no good me just wishing that. And you can wish that all you like, and plenty of people have for many, many millennia, and it hasn't happened yet, okay? So what we would have to do is we would have to decide what you can do about it. How can you end all conflict? How can we actually put the things into place that allow this to be an achievable outcome? Okay? And the beauty of this is that, in fact, where you would think that in order to be able to create global peace, you would need to dismantle all of the world's armies and yada yada, and deal with all of the squabbles that are going to come about because you killed my uncle and he killed it and this and that and the other. That could be the outcome. Yeah, that could conceivably be the only way of achieving the final outcome. I'm not suggesting for one moment that isn't. But in my experience of working with this plasticizing of the probability wave, is that in fact the desire and the intention are equally as powerful components as the action. So in fact, if we all absolutely, undeniably, 100% desired a peaceful life, without fighting, without fuss, without people needlessly dying, yeah, then first of all, just in that desire alone, that outcome becomes more likely. It may not be actually able to happen purely from the desire alone, but then you add your intent, yeah, you remember continually that is your desire. Yeah? You live your life in that moment of desire. I desire world peace. Okay? And then you make your choices when you're buying your bloody asparagus or whatever down at the supermarket and it says made in Israel and you don't like what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. Don't buy that bloody asparagus. Because you've remembered, you've got that intent. Okay? And even by the act of not buying the bloody asparagus, I'm not saying that, do you know what I mean, Israel makes all the bloody asparagus or anything, but as an example, as an e.g., okay? Because you have the desire, and because it is your intention, that even that small act of rebellion, of refusing to buy the produce of the country, company, that's probably actually more accurate, company of bloody Israel, the country's actions that you disapprove of, then that becomes an action, okay? And now we have the Trinity. Now we have the creative Trinity. Here we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay? This is the nature of creation. Alright? Now the thing is that if we all start to apply in our small ways this probability field effect and begin to focus our desire and carry out that desire as a vowed intention and act on that intention wherever we see a benefit. You know what I mean? There's no loss to not buying the asparagus, yeah? So not buying the asparagus is beneficial. Okay? And that's what I'm going to come back with. The nature of beneficence and of obsolescence. Right. Beneficence and obsolescence and the great God myth. Let's kind of tear this one down, eh? Okay, like I say, I'm not a great believer in miracles. I don't see any magic in any of the subjects that I study. That doesn't mean to say that I see huge wonder in the universe, but that's very different from the subject of magic. Okay? If we assume that the clockwork nature of the universe that we perceive is driven by mathematical truisms, that the perceived procession from then to now from next to now to then, in a consistent line wherever we look, then it must be assumed that linearity is contained and described by mathematics, that you can mathematically describe, like Newton did with the laws of gravity and the likes. You can mathematically predict the regularity of reality. Okay, I would go one step further than that, and I would suggest that the very nature of reality itself is mathematical. That everything that we see, all of the stuff that we see, all of the nature of reality is nothing more than the interaction of mathematical algorithms. Funny enough, somebody mentioned that perhaps when the universe was a simpler place, that we may have been able to recognise the patterns more clearly and therefore be able to affect reality more clearly. But again, this is not consistent with what I'm looking into, and what appears to be the case is in fact that the linear nature of time and that the progression and self-evolution of reality means that this quite literally is the apex moment of the time-space time frame, that it's always the apex moment. This is always the best time to have been alive. There will have always have been more faults with reality then than there is now, and there will be less faults with reality in the coming time. And the very reason for this is that in order for order to have achieved this higher level of complexity, for there to be atoms and planets and stars and people and cars and mountains and plants and birds, okay, that wouldn't, if there was no linearity, if there was no selective evolution, then that would not be the case. Okay, the very fact that we see an ordered universe, an ordered reality, an organised reality, that organisation hasn't been created by the hand of some beardy twat in a fucking cloud, right? That organisation was a very basic predominant fact of the way that creation came about in the first place. And that creation was driven by the sea of number stringing together algorithms that became self-evolving. And having became self-evolving, they didn't self-realise, you know what I mean? We didn't become sentient because the numbers began to start churning. But what would have then happened was that the self-evolving nature of it had to have developed at some point a preference for the beneficial, and possibly even some sort of a mechanism for eroding away the detrimental. So not only did the number set, the number interaction begin to self-evolve, that it generated algebraic equations that would simply self-generate more algebraic equations. Now, if that hadn't had some sort of beneficence acquired as a nature of consistently failing, yeah, that if in the absence of beneficence, okay, in the absence of some way of encouraging or at least keeping hold of that which is an improvement over that which is a detrimental thing, then those fractal self-evolving sequences would have simply disappeared back into the number Maya, because there wasn't any guaranteed progression built in. Eventually, through the infinity of time, they would self-collapse. In effect, that they would evolve and collapse. They would be evolving and collapsing systems. So in order for us to see the level of complexity, the level of order that we see, there has to have been something in those original Big Bang mathematics. And I described the Big Bang as mathematics. The Big Bang wasn't a physical event. The Big Bang was a mathematical, it was a numerological event. And it was an inevitable consequence of the interactions of number, of the reality of number, the fact that if I'm standing here and you're standing there, I'm a person, you're another person, that makes one, that makes two. Whatever two things you bring together can be described in two. It doesn't matter what language you describe them in, it doesn't matter even if you don't have the concept of number. Number exists without the concept of it ever being thought about. So number is really the only thing that can have existed before there was anybody to think anything. So we have this evidence of beneficence being preferred over obsolescence. That obsolescence would have essentially have become obsolete. That obsolescence wouldn't have been preferred in the early mathematical algorithm, and so the imprint of that successful first algorithm would have been one with a bias towards beneficence, and that may have been all it was. Yeah, in the initial phases, that would have all it would have been needed to be. Even the physicists say that in the current model of the Big Bang, that there had to be a preference somehow for matter over antimatter, because there would have been equal amounts of both created, and had that situation have been consistent to the universe that we see now, stars would be eating each other all over the place. In fact, there would never have been any stars, because the matter and antimatter would have simply have decayed into small energetic bursts. So even the most grounded of astrophysicists will gladly tell you that there was an obvious mechanism at work that is ill understood, that meant that matter was preferred over antimatter. Okay, that the particles were preferred over antiparticles, and as a result, the observed universe has a very small amount of antimatter in it, and is largely, the observable universe is all made up of matter. Although antimatter, if it exists, is out there, it's out there in very small quantities. That's if you believe their bloody SI view of the world. Which personally I think that the digital virtual reality model doesn't completely overwrite all of these current SI scientific models, scientific institute scientific models, but it certainly goes a long way to overriding it, being an overarching theory that's more inclusive than it is exclusive. Okay, so how do we make use of this? You know what I mean? What good is this going to be to us? Right, I'll just scroll back up because I was going to. Sven was saying something. Where was it, Sven? Oh, I hate this bloody chat box when it's busy. Right, there's me. Right, okay. We may have forgotten how to control reality as the world got larger and our individual effects on it became swamped by others. To some degree, you're very astute there, Sven. You've kind of got one of the problems, is that if we're looking at constructing our own reality, we have to obviously consider the fact that others have a level of influence over our reality. You know what I mean? If the person standing next to you takes a swing at you, it doesn't matter how hard you try and disbelieve in the reality of that punch coming, it's probably still going to hurt, because the other person has got their own reality frame that they're projecting into the universe, and anybody that's standing around and watching it is more likely to see their punch swinging and about to hit your face than your disbelief in its ability to touch you. This is probably where some of the sort of Qigong masters, some of the kind of martial arts masters come into this, that they can quite literally sort of Neo style from the Matrix kind of sidestep reality simply by their disbelief in its ability to touch them. And I would tend to agree that in the complex modern world, that these interactions, these interference fields of reality, these complex multiplis I'm not even going to try and say it a second time. These multitudinous inputs, all clamouring for our attention, certainly are a huge distraction. And I think it was Pat was saying about holding a thought, holding your intention is very difficult. And I agree but it's very much like a muscle that we have forgotten to exercise. That our inability to fix a desired intention in our minds and to continuously and consistently act upon that intention really is something that with practice we can get a lot closer to being able to achieve. Certainly in my experience, overcoming most of my kind of psychological problems required me to achieve a sense of self-awareness, of perpetual self-awareness, in order to be able to achieve the aims that I'd set for myself. That initially I found it utterly exhausting to be so persistently aware. One of the things that we're really not, generally speaking, aware of is just how much like automata we are, how much like robots we are, how automatically we pass through our day. I give an example of last time I went to pick up my boy Jake. Again, big up Jake. The missus give out his results on air on Thursday, but I might as well tell you, look, my first boy to get through university just got his results on... Oh, it was on Thursday, I think, on Thursday or Wednesday. Got through with a 2-1, so first chemist in the house. He did biochemistry and genetics at Warwick. Pick up Drake. I doubt if he's listening, he'll probably be too busy out on the piss with his mates, but we got him back on Monday. Looking forward to that. Where was I with that? Why did I say that? Completely lost my thread now. Somebody remind me. Oh yeah, fixed intent, that was it. Yeah, so initially I found it absolutely exhausting to be so self-consciously aware of everything all the time. Oh, maybe looking at that without specs on. And would find it really tiring when I first began to practice it as a kind of everyday, habituated self-awareness. But very soon, and with very little time, you begin to find that it's less and less concentration, and it becomes much more naturally. Oh, that was why I mentioned Jake. Yeah, of course, because last time I went to pick him up from uni, we were driving back from Coventry or Leamington Spa or whatever it was, and I literally remember the first 2 or 3 miles that I drove of the motorway, and then the last 2 or 3 miles of the motorway before. I literally drove probably 90 miles in excess of probably 80 miles an hour all the way through roadworks and traffic and this and the other, and hadn't noticed a single inch of it. Some other part of me was driving that road, and certainly was not driving in an unsafe manner. I would have been applying, an equal amount of attention to it as I would normally do consciously, but because it's so habituated, because it's something that I'm so used to doing, and this is what we're all capable of doing, that if it's something that we're used to doing, we can literally let our body carry on the habituated task while segregating off our conscious mind to apply fully to another task, in that case the deep conversation that I was busy having with my son from uni. So, in moments of abstraction, we notice this layering of the focus of our conscious actions, and realise that we can actually carry out intensely complex tasks. Driving at high speed on the motorway is not a simple task. You put a learner in a car and tell them to drive that same road at 80, they would have to, their knuckles would be white and they would have their nose pressed against the windscreen, terrified at the next thing that was coming at them. For me, being an experienced driver, it's so habituated in me that I would have built in lots of automated features about the distance I would keep from other cars, automatically looking into rear view mirrors and side mirrors and things before manoeuvring on the motorway, gauging my speed. All of these things can be completely automated, so in the safe motorway environment of all travelling in one direction, my mind was able to literally switch off from that task, disconnect from that task, and apply itself fully to the conversation with my son, which was fucking wonderful. It was great, great chat, and it's an incredibly boring drive, so who would want to drive it? But what I'm suggesting is that this is an indication of just how automated we actually are. Do I actually decide that I'm going to make toast now, or is it just simply a biological function that has stimulated the sense of hunger, which has sent a receptor to the brain, which has gone, oh yeah, I'm in the kitchen, bread, toaster. And this is really how we do function. And as soon as you start to take conscious control over your physical processes, even your breathing. In meditation, straight away you learn to control your breathing. Breathing is something that you do automatically. You very, very rarely ever think about breathing. Another thing that I found to correct my damaged knees, I had to really, really perfect my gait. I had to perfect my walking pace into a very natural gait. I've got foreshortened tendons in the backs of my knees due to damage to my knees from biking accidents and stuff. And as a result, I tend to walk like a bloody chimpanzee. And that this was perpetuating the damage to my knees. And the only way of overcoming this was to re-educate my body in the way that I moved when I was around. And again, it was this you tend to walk without thinking. So it becomes an effort to think about walking. And to always think about walking, because this is the only way that these things tend to work, is if you repeatedly, continually, habitually adjust the way that the bad habits that you've fallen into with the way that you should be, the way that you should be acting. So, so what I'm suggesting is that initially, that this seems to be tiresome, this seems to be too much like hard work. But trust me, the more aware you become of your day-to-day posture. Posture is incredibly important. If you're studying the chakras and you haven't studied a simple matter of posture, you can forget everything that you learnt about bloody chakras, because you're never going to experience any of it. Without good posture, it is not possible to light the bloody Kundalini. So, you know what I mean? You have to perfectly align them, and the chakras are only perfectly aligned when you're in perfect bloody posture. And again this thing about aligning the chakras, all well and good bloody aligning the chakras for the 30 seconds when you're fucking meditating. Now, what are you going to do about the rest of the time? Well, carry yourself with good posture. The more time that your spine and your brain are aligned in the perfect alignment that you were born with, and that your posture when sitting or standing are appropriate to your frame, as you were born with, not what you have constructed for yourself with your slouch and your, you know what I mean, your keyboard bloody hunch and whatever. The more switched on you become, and this really becomes, you know what I mean. If anybody's out there that still takes stimulant drugs, you know what I mean, fuck all that off. I mean, they're like the roller coaster ride, you know what I mean? You get the woo at the top, but woo at the bottom. Yeah, this shit is permanent, you know what I mean? This shit don't wear off. Alright, so perfect this stuff, and you never really ever need to worry about a come down again, or for that matter, seeing a dealer, you know what I mean, getting nicked, blah 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 blah, you know what I mean? I'm like I'm on coke all the time now, you know what I mean? I never used to do that shit anyway, but the occasional bit of speed. But this is, you know what I mean, it's a very similar sort of effect that becoming self-aware is like switching on more inputs. Yeah, the each input that you become aware of. So suddenly, like, I'm aware of seeing. Okay, I'm studying seeing. I'm not just seeing, but I'm looking at what I'm seeing. I'm thinking red, black, on colour, shape, size, intensity, luminosity, gradient. You know what I mean? And the same with your ears. Become aware of what you're hearing. Become aware of what your body's feeling. And suddenly you'll find that, you know what I mean, you'll be able to feel that you're sitting. I mean, when was the last time that you noticed that you were sitting? Then become aware of the fact that you're standing or walking. Begin to perfect things like making a cup of tea. You know what I mean? I make a cup of tea like it's almost like a Tai Chi. There's a ceremony for me in the pouring of a cup of tea. Right, yeah, I mean, language is another important factor here, in as much as from the cradle to the grave, our understanding of the things that surround us are formulated by the language with which we use to describe them. And the reason why this is so fundamental is because we construct the ideas, the language of the mind is carried out in words rather than in thoughts largely. It is possible to retrain the mind to imagine rather than to think, and that this can, you know, I mean, this is again quite a productive thing to always attempt to achieve. A friend of mine had actually completely managed to unteach himself the concepts of left and right through many years of meditation and practice, and he literally used to look at his hands and kind of shake one hand and shake the other hand before he could remember which one was his left from his right, and that had been an intentional act on his part in an attempt to kind of separate out the left-right brain sort of dichotomy. But essentially, yes, the language that we are given, the language that we are raised within, especially in this country, the English language has been so bastardised that it could be seen even to have been a Vatican plot. The very received English that we speak now, anything other than some very local dialects and some of the Gaelic languages, is essentially English that has been received from the mouths of the non-existent Shakespeare and the likes of Wordsworth and that. And essentially this is cult language, and that cult language was very formalised and it's entirely possible that in its formulation that it actually had an intention of controlling the way that we speak and thereby controlling the way that we think. There's even some suggestion that there's a degree of numerology has been encoded into it, but I actually see that particular theory as being contrary, and in fact that the numerology that you see appearing out of the English language isn't an indication of that numerology having been encoded in there, but is in fact more proof that we are living in a mathematical construct rather than an objective construct. That the reality that we experience is in fact mathematical in nature, and because of the mathematical nature of it, any way that we peer down a telescope at it, peer down a microscope at it, or peer up a telescope at it, any way that we begin to zoom in on any particular parameter in the reality that we experience, we see these same mathematical correlations coming about, and that this is in fact the underlying matrix. This is what the matrix is all about. That's what all that green streaming code is that you see on the screen. They may not be numbers, but they will be the representation of the data stream that the fake world in the matrix is constructed of. But it's my suggestion that in fact the entire world is constructed of that data stream, and reality is every bit as plastic in this reality as young Neo experiences it in the Matrix reality. It's just simply a matter that it has rule sets, and while we ill understand the rule sets, the parameters that are set for us, then we are essentially like children in our reality, that we stare in wonder at it rather than understanding, like the blacksmith understands the piece of steel that hides beneath the mouldy old lump of rock that the child brings in his grubby hands, that he knows to be load-bearing iron ore, and it's his knowledge and experience that is able to extract the steel from that iron ore. Well, in the same way that if the reality that we perceive we merely gander at, if we merely gape and go, wow, it's fabulous, great, wow, then there's not really a great deal of effect we're going to have of it other than experiencing more of the same. But if we don't like what we perceive, if we realise that we're not children of this universe, if we realise that we are fully mature creative forces within the reality that we perceive, then we begin to understand that we need the tools. We need the tools and we need the knowledge in order to be able to forge the reality that we experience. And the more of us that agree that we need to forge the reality that we experience, and the sooner that we can start to formulate the intention, the sooner that we can agree on a desired outcome and begin to forge the intention and then design the desired actions that will bring about that outcome, the sooner we will see the parameters of the forces that seem to be aligned against us essentially thinning and disappearing, because the very force that they're using against us is our belief in their stuff and substance. And this is really the nature of all of the Masonic and occult, sacred and mystic religious bloody sacraments that they make, is essentially them understanding that all of those deeds are actions within this intention, desire, reality field, and that by carrying out their bloody occult ceremonies, by sacrificing their goat or their child or their virgin or whatever it is that they do that they believe affects the outcome of reality, because of their belief in it, because of their intention, and because they then carry out the action that they think is going to bring about this reality, in effect, that's how they bring about that reality. But had they have just understood the real nature of reality and not believed in bloody mumbo-jumbo, magic woo-woo, gods and bloody demons and shit, they would have been able to achieve that desired outcome without any bloody virgins having to be slaughtered on an altar. Yeah, is all they would have needed to do is agree it between themselves, meditate on it, intend it, desire it, know that they deserve it, and act upon that desire and knowledge. And we can too, and there's a shitload more of us. There's a shitload more of us. If there's, if there's a million of these fuckers desiring some selfish, greedy outcome from their reality, how powerful is their desire going to be in the reality probability field if all of us understand the nature of our desire, of our intent, of our actions, and rail that power against them? We don't need any guns. We don't need any tanks. We don't need any great air force. Because all of those air force run on people. All of those tanks have to be driven by a man. Okay? And we know, I know that I affect you with the words that I say. You know that you affect the people that you talk to all the time with the words that you say. The words that you say can be an action. Okay? Make your words wise. Make them well chosen. Make them considered, well thought out, concise. Yeah? Then go tell. If you desire men to no longer go to war, go and stand outside your local bloody recruitment office and have a word with the lads. Have a word with them. All those poor lads with their girlfriend up the duff who are having to go off and go and shoot bloody Arabs because it's that or the dole. And they don't want their kids growing up in their smackhead bloody cul-de-sac with, all of the windows broken. They want something more for their child, their family, whatever. But to get that benefit for their family, they've got to go and shoot and kill people. Surely it wouldn't take much convincing to say, well, that's not really that great a choice, mate. Come on, let's see if we can't knock up a start-up business for you or something, you know what I mean? I've got some tools, I ain't got no money, but I've got some tools, we can scavenge some materials. Let's see what we can do before you take that Queen's shilling, yeah? Before you go signing your life away, and everybody else's that they tell you to point a bloody gun at, come have a look in my shed, see what I've got going, let's see what we can do, yeah? And this is how this is going to change. This isn't going to change by us railing at bloody shiny Mr. bloody Cameron on the TV. He only actually enters our life through that bloody TV set. He makes his fucking his demands and his allegations and his claims and all the rest of it, but it can only be put into action through other people. He's just one man on his own. What's his bloody reality field? Is reality field so much greater than mine? No, it isn't. And frankly, Mr. Cameron, I substitute your reality field and replace it with my own. And my reality field's much nicer than yours is. And we've got to disempower them. They are occult practitioners. You know what I mean? There is no question that the elite practice, things that they've been doing for thousands of years. And stuff that they dig up in old bloody texts and things like that. Anything that they think that's going to work, really, you know what I mean? It's the same old shit, you know what I mean? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if you've been doing it for 1,000 years and us gullible saps on the outside of their little secret have been swallowing their crap all of that time, then why change it, you know what I mean? But we're so much more powerful than they are. This is why they're running scared, you know what I mean? This is why they have to rail these bloody armies and police forces against us all the time, because they know that they are few and we are many. And if we realise our true power in this reality, in this universe, in this world, then they're stuffed. Well, again, they're stuffed if their desire is aligned against ours. If their desire is aligned with ours, I've got no problem with rich people. Yeah, I've got no problem with a social elite, you know what I mean? I don't particularly want to eat fucking petit fours and quaff champagne. But if you can possibly benefit humanities to such a degree that there is excess enough from that beneficence to supply you with that, if that was your desire, I see nothing incongruous in the reality that I would want to perceive with that reality. It's perfectly acceptable, yeah? As long as nobody suffers or dies because of it, as long as nobody starves or sickens because of it. If that's what they want to do, I don't want to bloody do it, but I'm not going to decry them wanting to do it. It's only when that desire becomes a selfish desire and ignores the consequence to others. And surely that's, you know what I mean, that's the essence of sovereignty, that's the essence of the sovereign movement, freedom movement, is the personal sovereignty. No harm or loss. Yeah? And even when we, you know what I mean, Stingray Moore, be ashamed of yourself, promulgating all that bullshit about bloody the 2012 Olympics being used as a false flag event is bollocks being put out by MI5 to test what the internet community can and will and won't distribute amongst itself. And to be quite honest, it's fear-mongering, and I'll have absolutely no part in it. Won't even give it my attention. It's self-evident what it was intended for. And this is, you know what I mean, people admonish me for not taking them seriously on their chemtrail research. And yeah, it's great that you've done all that research. Great, you're now convinced that you're having barium and aluminium and God knows what sprayed on your heads. What have you done about stopping it? It's great that you know what it is now that's falling on your head. Is that going to stop it from falling on your head? Have you actually taken any action to prevent this? Have you put in any freedom of information requests to, you know what I mean, various government departments? Have you know what I mean? Is it just about... See, my concern as well is that the human mind always rejects the mundane. Okay, we'll always take man bites dog over dog bites man. You know what I mean? The old adage of dog bites man, no news. Man bites dog, gets in the news. That we disassociate ourselves with the mundane. We always want to not only think of ourselves as special, but to think of the experiences that we are having as somehow special. And that the problem with this is that this leads us into these fields of research that really may be hugely important, but unless there is an outcome that is perceived at the end of it, unless there is something that you can do about this, then really you would be much better advised to have put all of that time, energy and effort into teaching your kids. You know what I mean? Training your dog, you know what I mean? Living a better life, learning to meditate, you know what I mean? Painting a picture. Okay? This is... And this beneficial and detrimental nature of reality is also borne out in that if we devote ourselves to helpfulness, to beneficence, you know, that we no longer need to chase after the mundane things, the regular everyday to day things, the reality field as a way of benefiting beneficence. We know that, we've just described that. Now if you trust in that, if you fully trust in that and extrude yourself, if you kind of pour yourself into helpfulness, into beneficence, into productiveness, regardless of what level it's on, even if it's only tidying your own bloody back garden, yeah? If it's good rather than bad, if it's beneficial rather than detrimental, yeah, then the more you do that, the more the universe will provide you with the tools in order to do that, whether that be money to pay your bills, food to put on your table, and you know what I mean, welfare will tell you that we have never had a great deal of money, but we've never been so least troubled about money since we only started concentrating on the outgoings. We've stopped worrying about what money's coming in completely. We don't pay any attention to it at all. We simply try and contain our outgoings, so we concentrate on containing our outgoings and maximising the effectiveness of our outgoings, and we've rarely been in less bloody debt. And we've got so much less coming in as well. So, you know what I mean, the turning away of the focus of your attention, the focus of our intent is no longer on the lack of something, but merely on the careful, focused control of that which you have got. Simple. There you go. Financial tricks. And health as well. This is really important for your well-being, for your health. That if we believe ourselves to be unwell, then the effect of that belief on the reality field is that we will become unwell. And so, we have to perpetually reinforce it within ourselves wellness, and rather than telling everybody about what aches and pains you've got, tell them what a good day you had yesterday. Tell them how well you feel. Tell them how well you felt when you last felt well. Just begin to talk about wellness instead of talking about illness. And this is again a lot of the focus on this radio station is of alternative health solutions, and that's great. That's brilliant. But let's not focus. There's an awful lot of focus on how crap the NHS is. When they're trying to poison you with vaccines, this, that. I'm equally guilty of some of that stuff. Yeah, but if you've actually experienced the National Health Service, I'm a standing testament to the National Health Service. If it wasn't for the National Health Service, my hernia would have killed me. I had a hiatus hernia that dropped out through my testicles, and I would have, my stomach would have stopped working. I would have gangrened up and would have been dead within a short period in the kind of natural world. So would you prefer that I hadn't been sustained by that service? Would you prefer that tax or subsistence goes to a system that's also responsible for chemotherapy and radiotherapy, which I understand are essentially like leeches from the bloody 15th century. Anyway, there you go. So, detrimental or beneficial, you'll come to know God, you'll come to know God. Bit of Radiohead for you to play out to. Maddie's coming up. I might have to throw on another tune or just let this run out. There's a bit of live Radiohead for you. Let's see whereabouts we are there. Oh, try and take that out first. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Good night, everybody.